Hey there, gamers. Welcome to the KindaFunny Gamescast, where each and every week we get together to talk about video games and all the things we love about them. And yes, I had Tim send me a little synopsis of all the stuff he has on these shows, because during these parts, I'm just blank. I got nothing going on in my mind. Yeah, totally gone.
Tonight.
You can get this show ad-free, watch live as we record it, and get a whole bevy of exclusive bonus shows over on patreon.com/kindafunny. Just like our Patreon producers, Brave Athos, Jedi Master Deadpool, Delaney Twining. Thank you, everybody. Great sound effects by Blessing. Yeah. Or you can watch at youtube.com/kindafunnygames and roosterteeth.com. Or you can listen on your favorite podcast services. Just search for KindaFunny Gamescast. Use creator code KindaFunny on the Epic Store to get epic in-game purchases, just like Rocket League and Fortnite, to help support us here at KindaFunny. It's totally free to do so. So you got your little 8-year-old nephew just getting a whole bunch of V-Bucks, trying to buy Thanos, and trying to buy, who else they got in there?
Yeah, like
Christina
Superman.
Ricci. Is she in
Zendaya? They got Tom Holland up in there.
What kind of celebs they got it up in there? Olivia Rodrigo?
Scott.
Yeah.
I don't think Olivia's in there.
Oh,
if Olivia was in there, I'd know.
I mean, she's due.
Yeah.
She's due.
Oh my! Once they put Olivia in there, it's over.
She's about 3 months away. It's over for what? What does that mean?
I'm playing Fortnite.
Okay. Housekeeping. There is none. So there's no. I don't have to read any housekeeping, which is pretty cool. Our ads are DraftKings Sportsbook and Rocket Money, but we'll talk about that later. For now, this is a very, very long-awaited episode.
Oh yeah.
Amongst a gigantic season, Blessing, of just games, because we had review season earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
We've had review season upon review season. Right now, the whole equinox is thrown off. The equator's off kilter. The planet is dying right now because all the seasons are melding with one another.
The global warming.
Global warming.
Reviews.
It's just, there's so many reviews out there. By the way, I'm Andy Cortez, and that's Blessing Adeoye Jr.
What's up? That's
and it's a two-person show. It's just two
gamers.
It's
like a rare Andy Cortez hosted Gamescast.
Yeah.
Have you ever hosted Gamescast?
Never.
Holy cow. But
I knew that this was going to be special. I knew that right now, let's bring on the two actual gamers of the company to talk video games.
What's throwing me off is like our like equilibrium or our symmetry is off, because like I'm on the corner, but like you're kind of like facing.
I think that's because I got out of the chair a little bit. Does this work?
Like, I can scoot in.
I think this works a little bit better now. This looks a little bit better now. This is a big show.
Oh yeah,
this is a big show because this is a review on a game that we've been looking forward to for quite some time, ever since it first got debuted. Lies of P, which is one of these Souls games that you go, wow, that looks promising. Probably not going to live up to a lot of the promises, right? It looks good. It's dazzling, and it's glittery, and it looks gorgeous, and the visuals are cool. But with a lot of Souls-like games that come and go.
Yeah. Mortal shells.
There are a lot of titles out there that kind of promise a little bit, hey, we're going to give you a bit of that taste of what FromSoft offers, and they never can quite deliver. Blessing.
Andy.
You have beat Lies of P.
I have.
Awful name, by the way.
I kind of like it.
It's grown on you?
It's grown on me for sure.
It's just hard to say fast.
Lies of P. And that's that thing too where whenever we say it, people in chat spam with like Life of Pi or whatever.
I always think Liza Minnelli, Liza P. It's hard to, when you tell somebody I'm playing a game called Lies of P.
They think you're saying Liza.
Like that like just
Elizabeth.
it doesn't really sound like any real words or whatever. Anyway, you've played Lies of P. You've beaten Lies of P. I have played many hours of it. What are your thoughts on Lies of P, a FromSoft style game, a Souls-like game from a South Korean developer?
Round 8.
It's been in development for about 4 years now. We can finally freaking talk about it after a lot of demos that have been released. Blessy, what are your thoughts?
I really love this game. On the KindaFunny scale, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5, which is the highest score we can give. The best compliment I can give this game, it starts from where you were just talking about just now, right? The fact that this is a game that has taken a lot of inspiration from Souls-like games, from software titles, namely the big one being Bloodborne. You hop into this game and you blur your eyes a little bit and you're like, oh, I'm playing Bloodborne right now. This feels like a game that is taking so much out of that. But at the same time, once you get further into it, and once you get your hands on the controller, you start to notice and feel a lot of other influences as well, right? Like it feels almost more like a greatest hits of From Software titles as opposed to just a Bloodborne clone. And that was my biggest fear, is that I was going to start playing this game and with every turn go, okay, this is cool, but it's not as good as Bloodborne. That's what I thought I was going to be saying throughout my time playing this game. There are parts where I do have that feeling, but for the most part, right, it is sort of the, I guess, vibe and tone of Bloodborne mixed with more of like the parry-based combat of a Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, mixed with some of the mechanics I imagine you get out of a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring when I talk about the amulet system. There's like a lot of different stuff in here, and then a lot of originality as well, because one of the things that this game does that is unique is its weapon assembly system, where most weapons have a handle and a blade part, and you can mix and match different handles and blades from different weapons to essentially create your own weapons that feel and control the way you want them to feel. That is very novel. That is really unique. And that system, I'd say, is like one of the shining takeaway features from this game that I hope other people look at and go, how do we get more creative with our weapon systems? Where
the blade adds a certain secondary attack, but the handle adds a secondary attack, but the blade is maybe good for blunt damage. And right now, if for audio listeners, we're doing the weed smoking sort of blunt symbol. That's what we're doing right now for audio listeners. If for those of y'all who aren't very familiar with a lot of Souls games, you usually have like a slash damage, you have a pierce damage, you have a blunt object type damage where, hey, here's a big ass club that's going to work good against these enemies, not so great against some sort of, furry being or beast or whatever, where a blade might work better in those situations.
And if you get into it, right, like you have the Fable Arts as well, which are these special abilities, and the handle has a Fable Art attached to it, and then the blade has another Fable Art attached to it, and so you can mix and match those abilities there. You might have a blade that is plus level 6 or whatever because you upgraded a certain amount, and so you have those individual qualities there, and then you have handles that that scales with certain stats. And so like for your strength stats, right, you have motivity, you have technique, and you have advance that each scale differently with certain weapons or certain handles, I should say. So you have a lot to take into account there. And that's just one of the systems. You have that. On top of that, you have the Legion arm, which is your I believe left arm has like almost think like a Samus type like ability attached to it, like it's its own weapon in itself, right? And the one you start off with is this scorpion style rope type attack where like you can kind of get over here with somebody and close the distance with them. Another one that there is like a cannon.
Are you able to fly to the enemies? I wasn't sure if I was able to figure that out.
If you upgrade it, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the other thing, is that with each of the Legion arms, you can upgrade them 3 times based on material that you collect during your playthrough. And yeah, like once you upgrade your that like get over here rope, that's what I'm going to call it now. Once you upgrade that to a certain point, you can then basically attach to your enemies and then pull your way toward the enemy as opposed to pulling them towards you. And then if you did what I did and upgrade it all the way, you get like a cool attack that's attached to that, where you pull yourself to your enemy, fly up in the air, and come down with an attack.
Those are the ones I saw in the trailer. I was like, I want to do that. I want to figure that out.
And each of those abilities, like again, like adds a level of depth and adds another layer to combat that really opens things up and makes combat feel really dynamic. I think that's the thing that this game does really well, is that it gives you so many different avenues to customize and tailor the way you play. There's the P organ, which is essentially a skill tree type system, and the list goes on. So
again, gross. Sounds gross.
Disgusting, right? It's
P organ.
It's the letter P dash organ. It's not like it's not your P organ.
But like you can see why somebody would.
Yeah, now that you say it out loud, I understand why that might sound disgusting. I wonder if they realize
I'm using this mechanic called the P organ in a video game called Liza P. You just say that stuff real fast. Yeah. It's like I wish it was just like, do puppets lie, or like if it was just something a little bit more similar, or simple
Dark
like
Pinocchio,
that.
or like just go real on the
Yeah, because this is just a quick synopsis here. It's inspired by Carlo Collodi's novel, or Collodi's. I got to assume that's how you pronounce it. The Adventures of Pinocchio. Liza P. tells the story of a humanoid puppet, Pinocchio, who wakes up in an abandoned train station in the city of Krat, engulfed in chaos and madness. Pinocchio must find his creator, the Master Geppetto, and overcome the calamity that has befallen the city, trying to become a man. It's basically what you imagine when you're scrolling TikTok and you see here's what you hear, that weird AI voice, and it's like, here's what Sleeping Beauty would look like if it was a horror movie, and they're
Yeah.
using like AI art generation to kind of make these things. This game, like Blessy was mentioning, looks very much like Bloodborne in tone, in lighting, the sort of gothic
Like even
Victorian
when you slash an
vibes.
enemy, those sound it makes and that like kinda,
Yeah.
like blood slash that happens, very Bloodborne.
And kind of in the area that I'm in, this game's always kind of meant to give off creepy vibes. I'm a bit further in. I've only put in. By the way, how long did it take you to beat this game?
It took me 40 hours and 30 minutes.
40 hours.
Way more
and 30
than
minutes.
way longer than I thought this game
Yeah.
was going to take. And with that, I'll caveat that I think mileage is going to vary based on how much time you put into it. Because after beating the game and talking to other reviewers, so to give a peek into my playthrough, I min-maxed technique as a stat early on, right? Technique is one of your strength stats, right? Against technique, motivity, advance. Motivity is more of like a, heavier kind of
Motivity,
weapon.
strength.
Yeah, motivity is strength. Technique is like more of like the almost like swifter weapons, right? Like smaller weapons, and then advance is like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like just another type of weapon is what it
Yeah,
is.
think of motivity is strength. Technique is. I'm already freaking blanking on the term that every FromSoft.
Oh, they're the FromSoft stat would be like I don't. I can look it up.
Yeah. You could see it. You could see the word. I can visualize it. But the other one is basically like kind of arcane magic.
Yes.
Using a lot more of your techniques and your abilities.
Dexterity.
Dexterity
would be
perfect.
technique.
Yeah, dexterity would be technique where you're kind of specializing in smaller, quicker type weapons. I've always been the big old, let me just lug around a sword, the size of a fucking Uber car picking
And that's
up,
my thing is like I like the dexterity stuff because I'm like I want to move quicker.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be able to be a bit more agile. Turns out in talking to other reviewers, they're basically like, hey, technique might be the hard mode of this game. Like I was talking to a couple of people who were like, yeah, we switched off of technique and started putting more points in motivity, and the game was way easier that way. I didn't know that, and so I was going all in on technique. And when I tell you, I was struggling in the last couple of boss fights. Like the last 2 boss fights alone took me maybe 6 to 7 hours in total just to get through. And like I think that for me that loops around to the things that I really like about the game, which is talk about the combat system and the weapon system, how cool that stuff is. The enemy design is fucking great, right? Like you're fighting a lot of automated puppets type enemies, right? Stuff that fits within the world of Pinocchio.
the puppets have gone crazy, everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, maybe there's like an actual master puppet controlling these puppets because we don't know who's controlling these puppets. They've gone mad.
Yeah.
They were basically made. Think of it as like any old AI story where AI goes rogue and goes buck wild and the robots take over. Think of Will Smith and iRobot,
Exactly.
That's what this, don't base, they should have just made Will Smith iRobot the From Software style game,
But yeah, like you're fighting a lot of puppets. You're fighting, and then you start finding more enemies that aren't puppets, that are a bit more like organic, fucked up creatures that you would expect out of a Bloodborne game. And that stuff surprised me, and I didn't expect that. And once I got there, I was like, oh, okay, this game has a bit more dimension to it, right? Like this game is reaching into areas that I didn't even think I'd see here. Once it started opening up like that, I was like, oh snap, okay. A lot of the enemy design and the moment to moment, like new enemies that you meet in every chapter, that stuff blew me away. And there are some points where I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit long in the tooth. I feel like I'm seeing this enemy quite a bit. But then as soon as I think that, there's another enemy that gets introduced, and I'm like, damn, all right, cool. Like y'all keep coming correct with it. That, and then the boss fights for me are really the shining star here, where, man, did they nail it. Like, I think for me, the biggest compliment I can pay to Round 8, this studio, this publisher, is that they really get it. Like, they really understand what makes a FromSoft Souls-like style game special. And when I get into the boss fights, and it is like that level, like that extra frame of hold on the animation before they hit you, that always fucks you up, right? When it is that
hesitant attacks,
those hezzies, when it is me downloading a boss over a period of time and going, I'm not leaving this spot until I take out this boss, right? Like it has that feel. I think a lot of the theme and I think character modeling and like visual design of a lot of the bosses, I think for me are right up there with FromSoft stuff, right? Like I think the actual mechanics and movesets itself, I might still edge over to FromSoft, but the theming and like how cool some of these bosses are and some of like the transformations and stuff, off the chain. Like they really nailed it in that aspect. But yeah, like I absolutely like I fell in love with this game. In 40 hours, like I rarely got bored. Again, there were places here and there where it felt a bit long in the tooth, but whenever the pacing felt a bit slower, right, like in the next moment, somehow like things would pick up. And so, yeah, I absolutely dug it.
I am about 10 hours in, a little bit under 10 hours, I'd say. This is a game that I've been looking forward to ever since I previewed it during GDC, I believe. And
Sounds about right.
And then the demo came out right as we were leaving to Summer Game Fest. And unfortunately didn't get to play it a whole lot, but was able to come back and really dive deeper into the demo and immediately knew this is going to be probably the best non-From Software Souls-like game.
Yeah.
Like this is the like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery sort of thing. Like that's happening here tenfold with what Round 8 Studios did. This is the most From Software game that I felt that isn't developed by From Software.
Yeah.
It is so authentically them in terms of the mood that they're presenting, in terms of what NPCs do, right? I feel like the only thing that is different is that these NPCs aren't all just British actors. I feel like the voice acting has kind of let me down in some moments where some voice actors are awesome and some pretty weak in some moments.
I feel that.
And there's like a pretty wide gap amongst the quality where like some of the NPCs I'm just legitimately blown away by and really impressed by. But some of the voice acting can get kind of odd at times. I think the game is incredibly gorgeous. It's running on Unreal Engine 4. It reminds me a lot of what we saw with something like Callisto Protocol, where we're seeing the last remnants of what an Unreal Engine 4 game looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing it kind of at max full potential. I think the lighting in this game is gorgeous. Animations are awesome. There's a lot of cast shadows. I'm playing on PC, and let's just a round of applause, everybody. Kevin, I know you're over there listening. Round of applause. This game runs well on PC.
Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
It is like, it shouldn't be surprising, but it is in this day and age. I'm not sure how performance is on console, but on PC, I am maxing out at, of course I have a very, very beefy machine, but that doesn't always matter with a lot of new releases.
I will say on console, right, in 40 hours and 30 minutes, not one crash. There were moments of like pop-in, like very quick pop-in, where I would enter a new location or I turn around real quick and like see a little bit of pop-in, but never any slowdown. Like I'm playing on performance mode as well. Nothing that's too noticeable or anything that I would say is like getting in the way of my experience.
Yeah, I have a pretty damn good PC, but as I mentioned earlier, that sometimes doesn't matter with new releases. Much like what a lot of people and myself experienced with Jedi Survivor when that first released, which I know that Jedi Survivor's gotten a lot better since then, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised that this game runs awesome on PC.
One thing I'll shout out to, like you mentioned, this game looks beautiful, and like I think, the environments of this game look absolutely gorgeous. The one thing that I was a little bit let down by was like when I would get to an area where I can like see a vista, like I can go and like I can like look around and see what what long distance looks like, and those moments were a bit disappointing. And I think it might be just coming off of Elden Ring, where Elden Ring open world game, right? Like at every moment it felt like they were thinking of, all right, if you got up on this hill and you looked out into the distance, like how can we make everything look beautiful? Coming off of Elden Ring, coming into this game and getting to a point where there's a view, it felt almost like I was gonna say Teraki. That's putting it too far, right?
Underwhelming.
It's not that, but a little bit underwhelming. Where it's like, all right, like clouds are covering this area because they didn't want to do all that, which fair, right? Because that's a lot of work to make those like those big vistas,
those
look
big
beautiful.
skyscapes and everything like that.
Yeah, like make that stuff look beautiful in every moment. But that was like the one part visually where like I was like, okay, yeah, I'm coming off of Elden Ring here. Aside from that, oh yeah, the environments look fantastic, and there's a lot of variety in the kind of environments that you're getting to that I thought was really cool, right? Like again, unexpected stuff where the game takes place in Krat, right? Crotch is basically this game's Yarnum. And the places they take you that aren't just, all right, let's go to 2nd Street or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get out and you go to places where it's like, oh, here's a cathedral. And you get there and it's like, oh, shoot, okay, this is actually really cool. Or you get somewhere else and it's like, whoa, all right, cool. Like, I think they do such a good job of trying to paint different types of environments. And a lot of them are just very stunning.
You already get kind of the Bloodborne effect where you just think you're going to be fighting werewolves the whole time. And suddenly there's a blue alien, like Mr. Meeseeks type dude.
Yep.
And you're like, what the fuck is happening in this video game? You know what I mean?
Bloodborne.
Like that I've already kind of gotten that feeling from this game. I don't know if this game is going to hit on the level of substance or storytelling, or like trying to go seek out those stories like the way From Software does so masterfully.
It doesn't. That's again, that's where I come back on when I get to those moments that are one for one. Okay, I can compare this to Bloodborne because this game is taking so much inspiration from Bloodborne. That's one of those things where I'm like, oh man, yeah, From Software got you here in terms of like taking the off-beaten path and
that's
finding
the sauce.
something.
Like,
and that's like a lot of the sauce
yeah.
that's in Bloodborne.
That's the Miyazaki
right?
sauce.
There's a little bit of that where like you'll be going down a path in this game and there's like a window with like a silhouette of a person and you talk to them and they're like, oh, I could really use an apple. And you like find an apple and you bring it back to them.
Lucky for you, I got an apple right here.
It's like, oh damn, I already got one in my pocket. Here you
Thanks
go.
for the apple.
Wipe this off. Like there's stuff like that, but it's not to that level that you see in Bloodborne. Bloodborne also has like big optional areas that you go down where it's like, I'm gonna fight the Bloodstar Beast or whatever.
Yeah.
Was the Bloodstar, was that the one where like the area had like the dude that was like firing bullets at you from far away?
Yeah,
I think that was the Bloodstar. Yeah,
and then you could take the alternate route and come back up behind him, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, what's up? I didn't know you were here."
But like, that was when I played Bloodborne, right? That was one of those ones where I thought that was mainline. I couldn't believe when I realized that was an optional thing.
Mhm.
In Lies of P, pretty much every path feels mainline. Like there's not at least from what I found in my playthrough, right? I could not find a big optional open area, which is fine, right? Like that, not every game needs to have that. But I also just found way less off-beaten, like, oh, here's this little secret over here that's gonna lead to this thing. Usually the ones that I found are a bit more pointed to. And like, I don't know, that was one of those things that I noticed where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like a one-for-one thing I can compare. That said, like the places in which they try to imbue like fun exploration stuff, I think they do a good job. Like there are moments where you'll collect like a thing that has to be translated by a character that you meet, and you bring it by and like he'll translate it for you. It'll be like a picture of a place that you've been to before, but like a thing will be circled. And it's like, hey, if you go back here, then like interact with this thing, you might get a fun collectible. And you do that and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, that was pretty neat. So those moments are cool. The other thing though I'll say about story is that this game is a bit more upfront with its narrative than like a lot of what From Software style is. Because From Soft, it's like you got to work for it. Like we're gonna give you narrative, but you got to work for the narrative. And like
you aren't a random puppet in this world. You are the titular character.
You are the titular character, and it feels like there's a lot more dialogue in this game than you'd expect out of a Bloodborne style thing, and it is just way more upfront, like more cutscenes, more like moment to moment. Like you basically have Jiminy Cricket in your pocket, and like he's talking. I'm like, there's a lot of talking in this video game, and I like it. Like it's a thing that makes it different. And it's a thing that I think works for it. And to its benefit, what I will say is that because there's a lot more upfront story with it, there are moments that hit me in a way that I did not expect. Like there's a character moment later in the game that had me like kind of emotional just based off of interactions that remind me of things like Nier Automata, for example, because Nier Automata is a game about like sentience and what makes us human and sexy robots and all these things, right? There's like similar subject matter that's touched upon in this game that kind of surprised me with how they went about like depicting some of this stuff. It surprised me in a good way, right? Like I just wasn't expecting it. And so when we got there, I was like, oh snap, okay, that's kind of hitting me in my feels a little bit. Like you guys are actually doing this thing. But yeah, it's a different vibe of a story than what you'd expect out of a From Software type thing, which I think works to its benefit. I think it works really well.
Well, I can't wait to dive deeper into the world of Crot. After a word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps lower your bills all in one place. And it has surprised multiple people at KindaFunny, multiple of my friends, at how many subscriptions they have that they forgot about and are still paying for. It's so easy to cancel the ones you don't want with just the press of a button. Rocket Money, it does all the work for you. Rocket Money can even negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill and Rocket Money will take care of the rest. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills all in one place. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. That's rocketmoney.com/kindafunny. This episode's brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. You can get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code KindaFunny to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KindaFunny. The crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. You can call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort KS. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Okay, we're back, Blessing.
And we're back.
I've been writing down a whole bunch of random notes. I kind of also want to go old school with this, like kind of like category by category. We've already kind of gotten over our broad thoughts here, but I did want to just point out, once again, Unreal Engine 4, I think the game looks insanely gorgeous. I think this game does, this game has made a lot of advancements in terms of approachability, but nowhere near what you would want or expect from a game to allow anybody to play it, right? There's no difficulty. There's no options like that.
No magic stat that's like almost feels like you're cheating, right? Or not even cheating. Like I know the Dark Souls games, as far as I understand it, like there's usually like, okay, if you want the easy mode, like just spec toward magic and that'll get you through. There's not really that.
It starts off that way, and then that slowly gets a little bit tougher later on. But whenever people say, it's my first Souls game, what should I go? Everybody always recommends go as be a sorcerer, be a magician, and because shooting spells and stuff like that is a little bit easier to deal with.
There are the specters, which are basically when you go into a boss fight. At every boss fight door, there is a pot, and if you have a star fragment, now I'm going to sound like a crazy person.
Yeah.
If you have a star fragment and you use it over the pot, when you start the boss battle, you'll have a little companion named his name is Spectre. No, he's called a Spectre. And so like that's kind of how they try to put like an easier assist in there.
It's essentially just summoning a helper like in any Souls game or in any Bloodborne game. I just don't know if they are.
It's still hard.
I don't know if they have anything to do with the story though. I think that's my bigger question. Whenever you are doing this in Souls games, whenever that happens, you're either bringing in an NPC who is another player character or another player somewhere around the world, or it has like story implications.
Yeah.
Like Horalu is when you show up to fight Horalu, who's there? It's, so-and-so from Elden Ring. Or if you're going to fight this character, that character's going to show up and they got business to tend to, you know what I mean?
Beef.
And like, and those are the moments where I'm like, you know what? I normally don't bring in, cooperative help like that, but I kind of want to see what this means for the story, or anything like that.
The name of what was the big boss in Elden Ring that like came down like a meteor and like he has like a bunch of people that would fight him? He had
Radon.
a little horse. Yeah, like Radon.
Yeah, Radon.
Like you would summon a bunch of people for that. And
summon
that's
a
very
bunch
much
of homies,
like, there's story here. Like there's basically a war that's going down.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if the Spectre that you summoned, because I I know the Spectre was available in the demo. I didn't use the Spectre, and I saw Snowmike Mike using the Spectre, which is, again, just this little thing that you summon right before a boss fight. And I wasn't sure, like, oh, is that a character in the story that we get to learn
as far as I can
later?
tell, it's just a ghost.
No,
Like,
it's just like a little helper.
helper.
Couple nice things that I think this game does to make the journey not as much of a pain in the ass, because a lot of From Software games are super tough and they're difficult, and you're gonna bash your head up against the wall for hours and hours and hours. But that's part of the journey, because you're just like, I feel myself getting better. I know I'm getting closer and closer to beating this. There's, I think, several quality of life things that even someone like From Software can learn from Round 8 Studios. For example, I love that before a boss fight, if you die, the room before you enter, your souls are.
Yeah,
Your souls are no longer in the boss room. And you call them souls here. They're called Ergo in the game, but I'll just keep on calling them souls. Like even for all the other types of currencies throughout all the other sort of souls likes, I would just call them souls. But that is really, really nice, because if you decide, you know what, I'm gonna use what I can. I want to go at least get that grand back to go maybe level up and grind a little bit to get more health or get more attack.
I never lost my Ergo in this game. Like, in a way, like I never died, had to go retrieve my Ergo, then died again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was very easy to go and, like, beeline and pick them back up and then maybe go grind or do something else.
Yeah.
So that was really convenient.
Super convenient. NPCs, the game lets you know where NPCs are. Whenever you have some sort of story moment, if you find an NPC, it's always really nice to kind of walk around and directionally hear their audio, and they're somewhere around you, and maybe they're on the top floor, and you go up and there's an NPC there. Does this dude want to fight? No, this dude just wants to talk. Let's have a little conversation, and then the next time you go to your fast travel, you'll see an icon. You'll see many different icons, depending on whether it's an NPC wanting to talk to you or depending on whether it's an item you're trying to turn in. You'll see all sorts of icons around, similar to what Elden Ring did with one of its sort of initial updates, where it told you where NPCs were. Yeah. Instead of just like, I hope I come across that dude, because that, who knows where the hell they are.
Well, one of the things I'll mention, right, and this is kind of the opposite thing. One of the things that I wish this game did that, would have taken inspiration from something like Elden Ring, to level up, you have to go back to Hotel Krat, which is your hub area. And man, oh man, like, I on one hand, I understand they really want you to go back to that hub because there's a lot of people there and there's a lot of things to do, and like, it's worthwhile to keep going back to the hub. But on the other hand, after playing Elden Ring,
back to the hub.
Let's go back. I love going back to the hub. I do it after work every day. But like, after playing Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring had any one of those points of light. I forgot what they're called already. The whatever the checkpoints.
Graces.
The graces. Yeah. Whenever you go back to one of those, you can just level up right at the checkpoint.
I was pretty surprised by that. When this game's demo first came out, the developer then released a video, I think several weeks later, kind of addressing all of the feedback and said, hey, we know you all don't like the dodge. We're going to make the dodge a little bit better and a little bit, more forgiving in some cases. And I really thought that they were going to walk back the whole, like, having to go back to Hotel Krat to level up. I was pretty surprised that did not get fixed or get changed or whatever. Let's see. Bad guys in this game, holy shit. Every one of these bad guys is a, 108 mile an hour pitcher for, the fucking Yankees. They throw so well and so far. They throw little grenades at you from across the goddamn map with perfect accuracy. And it's just a pain in the ass. That's not really like a complaint. It's just more of an observation. Like, holy shit.
Keep your finger on that sprint button.
These dudes are insane. Yeah, with how accurate they are. You think that like you're out of the line of sight. No, that guy's going to find a way to curve that bullet into that area.
You're in the wrong game.
Yeah.
We need to put you in Madden.
I want to shout out the level design. I think this game does a really damn good job with shortcuts and giving me as close to a FromSoft experience as I thought I'd get.
Yeah.
I think that there weren't ever any moments, like I always mention my first time playing Dark Souls 1 and having my brain blown out of my head many, many times. But there are several like, this is a clever little shortcut right here.
Yeah.
This is really convenient. I like the way that you are including this lift or having this gate suddenly be an openable gate when I just thought it was there for set dressing.
It's the thing where I'm like, have I just played enough of these games now where I'm noticing a lot of like of these shortcuts? Because when I get to a new checkpoint in a lot of these levels, right, I'm like, all right, like this door here, I can't open it, so obviously I'm about to loop around this way and then come back and drop this ladder here or do whatever. I feel like in this game is a lot more noticeable than the FromSoft games that I've played. That, and then also, if I had a one gripe with level design, it would be that I wish some of these levels were a bit more like open space or like a bit more surprising when you turn a corner, because like a lot of them do feel fundamental from software, right? Hey, you're gonna go down this path. We're gonna place two dudes here. We're gonna place a stronger dude right here, and then like, you know what? Let's put a guy here that
let's have a dude drop from the ceiling.
Let's have a guy drop from the ceiling. Like, it's the type of level design and enemy placement that you'd expect. But very few times was I surprised or like, oh shit, this is really cool. Like, it felt a bit standard, and I wish this game surprised me a bit more with that stuff in terms of like entering a room and being like, whoa, I guess the example I pull, right, early on in Bloodborne, you have what I call the skill check street, where it's like one of the first checkpoints. You go, you take the stairs down, and there's a street with like it feels like 100 enemies are there. It's like, whoa, like what's going on here? And it feels like it almost feels like a living, breathing location, as opposed to, okay, yeah, like, you know, you've got enemies placement right here, right? And so you have to go through that street and go, all right, I really just got to run past all these guys, because there's no way in hell that I'm fighting all these people this early in the game. I think that type of like mazy, explorable level design that you get out of a Bloodborne, some moments of that in this game, I think could have pushed some of the level design further. But that said, like, that's such a nitpick for me, right? Like, that's one of those ones where it's like, if I'm really gonna go mano a mano, place these two games against each other, then that's the stuff I get into. But yeah, like, I think on the surface, the level design is great. Like, I really do like how intricate it is. I do like how interconnected it is. And it comes back to the thing of, oh, these guys get it. Like, they understand that feeling of putting down a ladder and going, oh, thank God. Thank God I put a ladder here. Now this is my checkpoint, and I can come back this way, and I don't have to freak out if I die here.
Like, oh, this lift takes me back over here. I guess I was definitely missing those moments of, holy shit, I did not expect to be back right here. I wasn't. I'm shocked that out of the hour and a half of me sort of adventuring in this really gross area, holy shit, light at the end of the tunnel, I'm back, and there's the site of grace, there's the bonfire that I first started at. Thank God this has all been one gigantic sort of way to help me find the checkpoint.
Yeah.
I didn't have any moments like that, but I did have several moments of just, damn, that's a nice little clever, little checkpoint right there. That's a nice little clever way to sort of, not have to deal with all the mobs anymore. The game is very much structured like a Demon Souls or Dark Souls game, or Bloodborne. Pretty much, it's not open world. You are kind of fast traveling to zones. You will have your gigantic big, like, several stages, right? But then within those stages, there are going to be several different of these. What do they call them?
Stargazers?
Stargazers is where you would. Those are the bonfires in this game, and that's where you would be fast traveling to. And I think it's serviceable. Again, I think it seems like these developers went to, how to build a game 101 taught by From Software. Like,
that's the thing is, it does feel like they went to a GDC talk.
Yeah.
That was being led by Miyazaki, and they took all the notes, and they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah, they in some ways, I wish it did feel a bit more natural, but you also, you can't have it both ways. Like, a lot of times we play these FromSoft game, these Souls-like games by other developers, and go, man, it's just not quite FromSoft.
Mm-hmm.
This one is like, so much FromSoft that I think it's sometimes to a fault. But
it gets so FromSoft where it's like, oh well, now I have to compare it. Like, now I have to like look at this other thing and go, all right, like you made it this far, but then you did this. But then that's my thing though, is that in other ways it's like, oh, but you really innovated here, and that's where I come down on. No, it's a 5 out of 5 because again, like the weapon system and like the combining weapons and the fucking Legion arm. And
Yeah,
the
let's
upgrade
talk.
System.
Let's talk about the feel. This is
Yeah.
the section called the feel,
Which
which sort of encompasses mechanics and controls and combat. This game fucking kicks ass
Yes.
combat wise.
Oh my
Holy
God.
shit, this
Oh.
game rocks ass. And it's one of those that, like, when I played the demo, I didn't need to play more. I was like, I'll wait till this game comes out. I can tell this game's gonna be a fucking banger, right? Like, if you can bring me this quality of boss fight interaction with different phases, knowing what I'm going to be capable of combat wise. Essentially, like Blessing was mentioning, it's a Souls game through and through. I think it plays a lot like Sekiro. You could still dodge through attacks. You still have your invincibility frames. You see that big old swipe coming, and if you time that correctly, now be careful because that dude loads up his swipe attack for at least a minute.
Yeah, no, there's like 10 extra frames that you did not account for in
shit.
there.
These dudes take
Dude,
forever.
my favorite is like when an enemy loads up like a swipe attack, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to parry the shit out of this, and I hit the parry like 2 seconds too early, and then I'm like, oh, I have enough time here that I can just dodge, or I can just try to parry.
I
again.
check Instagram, like
Yeah,
I
no,
get
like,
on my phone.
I'm looking at
yeah.
my notifications, like, oh man, when are you gonna swipe, my guy?
It's wild. But essentially the way this game works is it kind of melds a lot of the best parts of a lot of different FromSoft games.
And it melds like a lot of my favorite parts too. Is the thing like the parry
absolutely.
system from Sekiro it maybe makes Sekiro my favorite combat system in a FromSoft game, and like it maybe ever honestly.
Just by us saying Sekiro, don't expect that type of speed.
No,
This game is
no,
not
no,
fast
no,
like Sekiro. When we talk about Sekiro, we're talking about that this game allows you to block attacks, and you could just hold that block button, and you'll take chip damage. But if you perfectly time the block, you're gonna take no chip damage.
Yeah,
and you're also
gonna build
kind
up
of
stagger.
You're building up their stagger, which will then allow for those big critical kind of attacks. This game also implements the Bloodborne rally system. When Bloodborne came out, a lot of people were like, "Holy shit, what's this? A Souls game? They're making a Dark Souls game without a shield." And I'm encouraged to be aggressive. If you take a hit, you can get right back in there and keep swiping away and get that health back, which is awesome to kind of be encouraged to get back into the fight quickly. This game kind of like marries a lot of the best elements from a lot of different From Software combat I think it was like kind of perfectly done and not overdone in any way. It's still simple enough.
Yep.
It keeps the complex. It's like, hey, let's leave the complexity to all the different currencies and upgrade trees. Let's leave let's leave that the complexities over there.
They find a good handful of different systems and mechanics, and then expand on those like crazy, right? Again, it is that the parry stuff and like the rally mechanic where you can hit back and get some of your health back, right? And then like the Legion arm stuff, and then it's like, okay, how do we build on that? And then you get to the skill tree, and it is again talking about the P organ.
I forgot the P organ existed until like 3 hours ago.
Oh, dude, the P organ is so
I sat
clutch.
down on that. I was like, what happens if I sit down in this chair? And I was like, oh my God, I forgot this was a whole
Dude,
mechanic.
the P organ is so clutch because as you play through the game, there's a collectible called quartz. And quartz are dropped by like bigger enemies or more dangerous enemies, or sometimes you'll find them in a chest. They're rare, but once you find one, you can then take them back to this chair that Geppetto has in his office. And then you sit down in the chair, and then each quartz...
Sit down, my dear boy.
Sit down, my dear boy. Each quartz lets you get like one upgrade. The way the skill tree works is kind of confusing when you look at it first, but basically it's done in phases. So in phase 1, you have 4 different things that you might be able to upgrade. Maybe you want to get an extra health pack or whatever.
They're all essentially passive abilities.
Yeah, like you can get an extra health pack, or you can get maybe another bar for your Fable abilities, or maybe you want to get like another thing. You can then, oh man, Kevin's clutch.
Kevin's clutch right now.
This person has 34 quartz? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. That's insane.
I think this is from them. I think this is a video from...
Yeah, but like even putting that in the trailer, that's false advertising. I had 2 at most at one given point. But basically, you like you go and you put in like 1 core. Like sometimes an upgrade will take like 2 cores to get the full upgrade. But if you go in and put 1 core, you can then like maybe upgrade your attack ability or upgrade your stagger damage or upgrade. Like there's a long list of things that you might be able to add to try and build build your character the way you want to build them. And it's just like an extra added level of depth that like they keep doing, because it's the P-Organ stuff, it's the Legion arm, it's the weapon upgrades, it's the weapon assembly. It's like Andy, for where you're at in the game, there's still like big systems that have yet to be introduced that like really changes the way you play, right? Like there's so much stuff in there, and it's all built around expanding this handful of things that you're doing and like working towards in combat, and it's balanced so well. And like I'm so excited to see online soon enough, once people get their hands on the game, the different builds that they have. It's not to like it won't be to Elden Ring level.
Here are the best builds to run in Lies of P.
Yeah, like you're gonna get those videos, right? Of like, oh yeah, for my arm, I got a fucking big old shield that like when I parry it explodes, but then I got like a fucking big ass great sword that I use. But also like if I press triangle, I do a backflip and then kick them in the face. Like it's that kind of cool shit that you can do, and that kind of customability that you have with your character that makes this game feel very excited to engage with in that level. Because another thing that I'll shout out too is that like I change my weapon maybe every 5 hours, and it always felt satisfying of, all right, oh man, this is my weapon, because it scales well with technique. I got a handle that I've upgraded, so that's like it scales S rank with technique. Oh man, all right, this is the one I'm using for the rest of the game. And then 5 hours later, I find a weapon where I'm like, let me upgrade this. Like let me upgrade this and see where, oh yeah, it's higher attack. I'm gonna stick with this one, right? And like.
And I like the way the animation on this heavy attack looks.
Yeah,
better,
or like I like this Fable art ability, right? And one of the things I'll mention with the stats is that the stats all like looking at the stat menu and trying to figure out how I want to level up this character. That should have me sweating, because like I mentioned, I min-maxed technique. One of the things early on where I was like, I ain't gotta waste points on this was capacity. Capacity is your ability to carry more equipment. Like it affects your the weight of what you can carry. Early on, I was like, I ain't got to worry about this shit. When I tell you that by the time I got to the end of the game, that was my most upgraded stat, because you really could just min-max capacity and carry a bunch of shit that really will get you to where you need to go, because like there's so much stuff you're picking up. Everything you equip obviously like contributes to the amount of weight you're carrying, and you have the amulets, which are basically this game's talismans from Elden Ring. You can equip multiple weapons. You have
like defensive parts, like kind of cores.
Yeah, you have like your internal core stuff that affects your defensive stuff, or like the linen of like what your skin is made out of. I never looked too deeply into what the fuck that means, but like that's
if you did, I'd be concerned.
It's another defensive thing of like you're defended against this much slash damage, this much blunt damage, this much pierce damage. A lot of detail you can get into like creating your character, crafting your character.
And I don't know if there's a better feeling mechanic this year or any year. And I'm talking just like the feel visually, the sound of breaking an enemy's weapon.
Yeah.
And
these trailers kind of spoilery.
that is such an amazing feeling, to wear down an enemy so long and to be perfect parrying and perfect blocking every one of their attacks. And anytime that, an enemy, you can't break everybody's weapon. You got to keep that in mind. Like you'll notice that if an enemy's swinging a big club at you and you perfectly time that block, it'll glow orange. But if an enemy's punching you and nothing's glowing orange, you're like, all right, well, nothing's going to break on this dude. All I'm doing is building stagger, which is still good. But the thing that I love the most is like, it's such an easy concept that I can't believe I'm as blown away by it. And I feel like it's maybe because we just haven't had it very much in games like this. But the idea that if you perfect block their attacks enough, their weapon will break, and then they do less damage with that broken weapon.
Yeah.
Such a stupid ass easy concept. Like,
oh yeah,
just surface level. Like, yeah, the weaker weapon will do less damage against you. But it's so genius, and it works so perfectly with how I want to play this game. I sometimes have more success just dodging enemies, but I have a lot more fun trying to get the perfect blocks down, to have that boss finally do one more swing at me. And the sound, and again, all of it together, it reminds me of like parrying somebody in Dark Souls, or getting that perfect sort of stagger in Bloodborne to go in for the
best
visceral
feeling.
attack. Like, this is on that level for me of like, they have the perfect sound effect for it, and it is amazing. A game that doesn't do it great, Atlas Fallen, has like an awful parry sound effect. It sounds like, some people were like, this sounds like a Metal Gear Solid menu sound.
Yeah.
Like, this game has like a just a great impact sound. The weapon breaks, you see it fly off.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit,
like,
now
oh,
I
I'm
got
about to
you,
fuck
bro.
this guy up.
Yeah, it is such an awesome feeling.
One thing about the parry, right? I wish the timing of the parry was a little bit more forgiving. There were so
It's
many
tough.
times where I'm like, I swear to God, I got that, right? And like, maybe that's a get good moment for me, but I've also heard it from other people, so which makes me feel comfortable that it might not just be me.
It's a tough game.
It's tough.
I'll say like it is. I thought it was going to be pretty easy because I guess when I played the demo back several months ago, you know, the final boss of the demo, I was like, okay, I'm struggling here, but I beat it within like an hour, maybe.
Yeah.
An hour and a half. And this time I was like, you know what? I'll summon the little specter. I'll summon the specter, see how
Mr. Spectre.
And it was so fast. Like, I beat this boss so quickly on the first try, and I was like, man, maybe they tuned some stuff down because this feels a little bit easy, honestly. And I was quickly just shut up because several bosses later took me, you know, I've taken like, you know, an hour and a half to like, you know, around 60 minutes to 90 minutes for a lot of these boss fights.
I was looking forward to Lubu from Wolong Fallen Dynasty. I was looking forward to like getting to the end of the year and being like, all right, that won the award for toughest boss battle of the year. There's a couple of boss fights in here where I'm like, oh, this is harder than Lubu.
Oh shit.
And Lubu had me like shaking in my boots, dude. Like, Lubu had me struggling in
Lubu had
Fallen
me
Dynasty.
breaking controllers, man.
There's a boss battle in here, and it's like the ones like toward the end where I'm like, how the fuck do they expect anybody to get past this? And eventually I do, and I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, I'm sweating, dude.
But it's also one of those games that reminds, I mean, it's the best and worst parts of any Souls-like, where there are several enemies that aren't bosses that are just going to ruin your goddamn day.
Oh, dude.
There are several just standard enemies that are, you know, larger and more, you know, these aren't just normal mob enemies, right? But like, there are some dudes out there, like, every time I see one of those fuckers.
Yeah. Dude, I got fucked up by a bear. That bear fucked up my shit. I was like, ah, shit. Like, you're not even like a big puppet. Like, you're not even like a demon or whatever.
Yeah.
You're a fucking bear.
You didn't even get a cutscene. You
Yeah,
just
like,
kind of
no.
strolled in
Like,
here.
I just kind of saw you just walking around, and I was like, oh, I'll take this bear out, and that bear fucked me up. And then I came through, and I made that bear my grind bear. Where like I was like, I'm coming down this path 100 times just so I can get ergo, and I'm murdering this bear like fucking 100 times in a row just so I can get all this XP so I can level up.
Yeah, and then you equip that one little talisman or whatever that gets you more ergo whenever you kill somebody, and like all of those systems play so well together. And I love that this game does have passives like that. The enemy that kept on getting me was early on was the big fire dude who would hit you once and knock you down, and as you're like recovering would whack you like at least 5 or 6 more times.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, that dude was an asshole.
Yeah.
That's a really, really terrible dude.
Yeah, other categories in there?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about like systems when it comes to like not only just what we talked about with the P organ, but the other talent trees. I think that it can get a little bit overwhelming for someone like me who is pretty familiar with the flow and rhythm of a Souls game. This kind of hits a lot of those same beats, where if you kill a big boss, guess what? You're going to get a special boss soul.
Yeah.
And you can break that soul to get a bunch of ergo or get a bunch of souls or whatever. Or later on, you'll find an NPC who says, hey, give me that special boss soul and I'll give you a cool weapon in exchange for it. So like a lot of those rhythms are still there.
Yeah.
I broke that rule super early on.
Oh, no.
Which is like, whatever. I've never been like, my chat always would freak out whenever I'd be playing these games, and they'd be like, "No, don't get that weapon." And it's like, I don't need to get every weapon. It's okay. I
Dude,
can
one
skip
of the weapons like carried me through maybe like 8 hours of the game. Like one of the weapons I got.
one of the special ones.
One of the special ones, yeah.
Yeah, so like keep that in mind. There are a lot of the same rhythms that you're used to. You're gonna get that same verse, chorus, instrumental break, final chorus. Like they hit all the same sort of beats that a FromSoft game would do. So when you beat a big boss, make sure you're not breaking that big ergo thing. I do feel like leveling up took quite a while. Like I'm used to when I play Elden Ring with Mike and Nick, and we beat a big boss, and it's like, here's 80,000 souls or whatever. Here's it runes all the, and I feel like anytime I'd beat a massive boss, it would be like, here's 6,000. It's like, God damn, you're allowing me to level up once.
Yeah. Oh,
that feels kind of bullshit right now. I wasn't sure how you were feeling with like leveling up early on, because I know it's some criticisms we had with Starfield. Takes a while to level up, and at least later on, and then you can't reset any of your points. I'm not sure if there's any reset points here.
I didn't have. So you can respec after a certain point. I didn't find the respec because I wanted to respec real bad. Because again, I put myself in hard mode. And so, but I couldn't find the respec, and so I thought it wasn't there until I hit somebody else up, and they were like, "Oh, I finally found it. It's it's this place." I'm like, "Oh shit." But
maybe we were talking about another game where it took really long to level up.
I think Starfield had.
Was it Starfield? Okay.
But I didn't have as much of that issue. But I think part of that might be rewind like a year and a half ago when we were reviewing Elden Ring, and one of my big complaints with Elden Ring was like, yeah, I feel like I'm being forced to just grind, and like I'm on the same hill, taking out the same people, and I'm doing that for like hours on a time just so I can level up and then grind. And, like,
I hated you for saying that.
I know, like I
resented you.
And like that was a beef I had with that game. I think there's something that's swished within me where in this game I found a pretty good hallway, and I was like, I'm gonna put on a podcast. I'm gonna be in this hallway for an hour and a half, just fucking grinding out XP. And I did that, and it was the best feeling ever. Like, I enjoyed it so much. I didn't want to stop. I was like, yo, I'm getting so fucking powerful. Just killing the same 3 enemies. It was like 2 fucking like puppets without even like skins. They were just like they're puppets that were falling off the bone.
Oh, okay.
That I was taking out, and then one big guy. I took out those 3 puppets. So many, and then I found another room in the same route that had 2 more puppets in it. I was like, oh, I'm about to get more XP out of these guys. And so I kept grinding the same NPCs, like kept getting the same XP. I leveled up like maybe 15 to 20 times just based on that hallway, and it felt so fucking good. And so I think just early on I had already just like over leveled myself. That hit equilibrium pretty quickly, like further into the game, where like you get to a boss and it's like, okay, this is leveled out. Like these guys are on my level. But I think once you're that far into the game, you've kind of just locked into like whatever your thing is, and it becomes even less about leveling as it is about collecting the right items and talismans and upgrading your weapon and stuff like that. So I really didn't like struggle with that stuff until late game, where I felt I was just too weak. And that ended up just coming down to like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna try harder.
Another nice quality of life thing I wanted to throw out there is them kind of having their own category for throwable items. Usually FromSoft just has like, here's everything you've ever picked up.
Oh yeah,
it's up.
Menu's
but
pretty
you
good
have to kind of decide which are throwable and which are consumable. They just have like a whole bunch of stuff, but there's like a special section that's like throwing items. And it's like, oh, shout out to you. That's awesome.
One thing I'll shout out, there's an item that's like a go back to the last checkpoint type item when you use it. Like I have it mapped to X and then right on the D-pad.
Homeward bone.
And it's so because like one of the, again, like earlier in this episode, right, one of the complaints is that, oh, you have to go back to the hub area to then level up. You have to talk to a person. When you use that item, a menu pops up that's like last Stargazer or the hotel Stargazer. And so do you want to go back to your last checkpoint, or do you want to quick travel to the hotel? And like when in those bouts of I'll call it grind paralysis, right? Like I'm just like in my mode of get XP. All right, I got enough to level up. X right D-pad, and
is that on a cooldown?
No,
that's just forever.
It's just forever. Yeah, you can use it whenever you want.
Oh wow!
And it is the most convenient. Like every Souls game needs to have this thing.
So in Dark Souls 3, there's an item called the Homeward Bone that takes you back to either the last bonfire or your hub world. But then you can eventually level it up to a point where you have one in perpetuity. You just have like the permanent version of it. But that's neat that you have it from the get-go. I wasn't sure what that item did. And yeah, with every new sort of Souls style game, you're gonna have to learn a new terminology. You're learning a new dictionary. You're learning a new language. Like, how is this game trying to get across what I know the other games are
I
getting
appreciate
across?
though that like this game expects you to kind of know already. Like all the stuff is the same, right? Like we know what the packs are that you pop to like get more XP. We know like again like it's called the Homeward Bone.
Homeward Bone, yeah.
A wild name for that.
Bone.
It's insane.
It's a little bone. You eat it.
Well, you eat the bone.
Throat that bone.
Yeah. Well, you have that, right? Like there's a level of familiarity where if you played one of these, then like you kind of know what you're getting into. But this game also does have a pretty good glossary and a pretty good tutorial system where you'll get the pop-ups of like, oh yeah, here's this thing that will tell you a quick thing about, and then it's a bit more I guess on the face of it of trying to teach you how to play the game. Which again I appreciate. I think that's good for people that might pick up Lies of P as their first one.
One last thing I wanted to throw out, because again I'm loving this game and I can't wait to get back to it. And it's such a small thing that I don't have a whole lot of high hopes for, and I don't want you to spoil me on anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could just give me the overall vibe of it, because if any of y'all play the demo, there's a moment where, and the demo takes place right at the beginning of the game. And there's a moment where they're like, hey, you can only enter this hotel if you're human. So you have to lie in order to get into the hotel. What are you going to do? Are you a puppet or are you a human? So you choose, I'm going to lie. And you say that you're a human and they let you in. And it's like, oh, wow, puppets can't lie. How is this dude lying?
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought this system was going to be insanely shallow. It still very well may be, but there was a moment with an NPC where an NPC was like asking me stuff about the hub world, and I didn't want to let them know, just based on past experiences with Souls games.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
There have been a lot of Souls games blessings where sometimes I just pluralized your first name. Blessings.
But,
there have been several Souls games where maybe you get a little too lackadaisical and you're like, yeah, let Ronnie in. Fucking,
basically, you have hood knowledge. Like,
yes.
like you've been here before. You know what the vibes are.
And so you let fucking Ronnie in, and then you show up back to your hub world to level up, and all your homies are dead, and you're like, oh my God.
What the fuck?
Ronnie the murderer actually was a murderer. They don't just call him that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, there are moments like I've already hit one of those moments. I'm like, oh, this is kind of intriguing. And I don't know if it's going to amount to very much at all, but I appreciate that it's there in the form that it's in, because it's at least making me think, you know?
Yeah. It's tough to talk about without spoiling things, and so I'm not gonna spoil anything. But like, I think for me, I was satisfied with like how decisions I made.
On a 0 to 5, where would you rate those little decision making? Like the quality of
maybe like a 3.
Okay,
right?
cool. That's
like, it's
way more than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, like it's not gonna be like life altering, at least from what I understand. Unless I go back and make different decisions, it turns out it's a fucking different game. But
there are 3 different endings.
Oh, is that confirmed?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, like there are when you make certain choices, it does affect things, is what I'll say.
Okay.
But
I like that.
I don't think I had anything like that where I'm like, oh yeah, come over to this thing, and then all of a sudden, like I'm like, oh shit, I fucked up, everything's fucked. Oh god, like I never had any moments like that. But there were cool moments of like, oh shoot, do I tell this person this thing? Like what I will say, because it's this is a pretty cool story about like, again, the character you're playing, them being a puppet. A lot of the themes revolve around making human choices, and so there will be characters they're talking to that are going through a thing, and it's like, do I lie to comfort this person, or do I tell the truth even though the truth is kind of fucked up? And like those decisions kind of like build into who your character is, and like they have ramifications to your character. And so when you get to those decisions, like you have to kind of think about it, right? And like there are that is a lot of what the game is doing with its choices, without spoiling anything. And I think that stuff is really neat.
I like that a lot. I would not have expected very much from that, because that's what you're giving me right there. Blessing is like you're taking the From Software sauce, and you're just letting me dip the chip in a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I got that tostada, and I just dipped it in a little tiny bit, and that's just enough for me.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts, Bless?
Again, like I absolutely adore this game. I think it's up there with the best games of the year for me. I'm so curious to see if other people agree, right? Like I don't know what anybody else is giving this game. I don't know what reviews look like, right? But like playing this game, I'm blown away by it. I think it'll probably be in like my top 5 maybe in like a year that's already stacked. We'll see when Spider-Man 2 comes out, you know what I mean? Like it's tough to figure out what
Yeah.
top 5 is, but dude, it's incredible.
It's already seeming like the biggest surprise of the year, for me at least, where, again, we see a lot of these games come and go. We see a lot of games with big promises and never quite deliver, but this one is seeming like it might.
The fact that I'm playing this game post Elden Ring and I'm in love with it, I think speaks volumes to like how good it is. Like again, it's tough to, and I don't want to get into this whole thing and like just compare it, even though I've compared it a lot already to Soul stuff, right? Like, you know, I don't know if people are gonna like this as much as Bloodborne. I think there are plenty of things that Bloodborne does better. I think there are some things that this game does better.
Look, on their website, they say this game is a Soul style game. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's no way you can disconnect the two. Like, it is very, very much part of that DNA.
The thing that impresses me the most is that not only do these guys get it, but they injected enough originality into it where I'm like, oh, okay, this is its own thing, and this thing is a game that stands on its own 2 legs and has something to say and has something here that makes it worthwhile to play, even outside of the other games that have come before it. And so, yeah, I think this game is up there for me, and I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, and just check your corners. You're always going to have someone popping out from somewhere trying to stab you in the back or knock you off a ledge.
1000%.
It is very much a Souls game in that way. But thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We appreciate you very, very much. That's been Blessing. I've been Andy. This has been the KindaFunny Gamescast. Make sure you go to the video if you're listening on audio and just click the like button and say, damn, Andy, what a host, huh?
What a host.
That guy was hosting today.
That guy hosted today.
Appreciate you all watching, everybody. We'll see you all next time.